Shalom, Bethel family. It is Thursday, and this will be my last one of these messages. This reviews of our Torah talk in synagogue for a few weeks, as I am heading up to Camp Ramah to be a teacher. I'm looking forward to that. This past week in Shul, though, we read Parshat Balak, a wonderful story. About this king Balak who hires the sorcerer Bilam to go and curse the Jewish people. And when he goes to curse the Jewish people, instead of saying curses, God places these beautiful blessings in his mouth, and he ends up blessing the Jewish people instead. The most famous of these blessings is the phrase "Mah Tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael," or "How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel." Why are they so famous? Why is this verse the most famous of all of those? Because it became a custom when Sidurim started to be written that this verse would be the first one that is said upon entering the synagogue, right? In a paragraph that contains several verses and ideas, we recite Mah Tovu. Now it's interesting because, right, it says, "How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel." Clearly seems to be talking about tents, houses, places where people were living in the desert. So why would we say it coming into the synagogue? Not only that, there was much controversy all through the Middle Ages about whether or not this verse should even be included, because one, it was intended as a curse, even if it came out as a blessing, and two, it was the words of a foreign prophet, right? Bilam was not an Israelite. He was apparently a genuine prophet. He could interact with God, but he wasn't a Jewish person. He wasn't an Israelite. So I want to dig in a little bit because I think there's a very powerful message within this Mah Tovu verse that makes it so appropriate to be the place where we start our services. So first, to start, let's look at Rashi's commentary. Always a good place to start. Rashi, in commenting on this verse, which is in Bamidbar 24, verse 5, says, "How goodly are your tents?" He said this because he saw that the entrances of the tents were not exactly facing each other. Very, very famous midrash on Mah Tovu and why Bilam was inspired to give this particular blessing. Right? Somehow, with these 2 million or so people all camped, every tent was positioned just so that everyone could still have their individual privacy. Right? So that's the first thing. And then Rashi goes on, Mishkanotecha, right, your dwelling places, means your encampments, right? So these tents all facing different directions. Devar acher, another explanation, right? Whenever Rashi gives another explanation, it means he's not really satisfied with the first one. There's a completely different idea for what your dwelling places means, or what it all means. How goodly are your tents? How goodly are the tent of Shiloh and the temple when these flourished, in that sacrifices were offered therein to atone for you. Right, so he says, the tents in this version, which is clearly not the simple meaning of the text, does not refer to the dwelling places that Bilam is actually looking at. He's inspired, right? He has a vision when he's looking at the encampment, right? And presumably the tabernacle is in the middle of the encampment, so maybe that's what he's looking at. And he's seeing all of the future shrines, the temple, these shrines that dotted in Shiloh, and where the tabernacle was set up. And he says, how goodly are your tents, these sacred spaces where you would pray. And that explanation at least makes it fit a little better, right? Rashi's Devar Acher, his second explanation, makes it fit a little better that we say Mah Tovu upon entering, right, a synagogue, a sanctuary where we're going to pray, serving the purpose of what the tabernacle did in the desert and the temple in Jerusalem. But I want to actually take those explanations a little bit further, right? Because when we come into the sanctuary, something amazing happens. We go from being individuals to being a minyan. At least we hope so if we get 10 people who show up, right? And so there's a wonderful comment that aligns with Rashi's first part about the tents facing different directions, right? So what could that have to do? We were discussing it in shul, and one person pointed out, people come in as individuals to the sanctuary, and they all their heads are in different directions or whatever. Everyone's got their own personal things to pray for. Everyone's got their own personal facility and skill level with this, and then they all come together in one minyan, in one congregation to turn to God together. Even though we're all doing something a little different, we're doing it together, we're doing it the same. And that's what inspired Bilam, right? It is to take that even a step further. In Lawrence Kushner and Nehemiah Poland's commentary in My People's Prayer book on this, in Volume 5, they say, these are the words of the non-Jewish prophet Balaam while overlooking the encamped tribes of Israel spread out below them. In its biblical context, Balaam must be speaking what amounts to a poem of praise, as if to say, all the Jews are together and the scene is wonderful but to behold. Now we see why Mah Tovu occurs at the very beginning of the morning liturgy. We should understand its imagery in the light of what's happening in the sanctuary at the time of recitation. And this is a beautiful idea. Everyone is putting on their talit, and their talis, and this ritual customarily begins by draping the entire prayer shawl over one's head. Right? Everyone is busy with his or her own private ritual. People rarely have the opportunity to survey the entire scene, but someone looking down from above would see all these Jews who appear to have made their own personal tents. How wonderful are your tents, O Jacob. Right? So quite literally, we can see that connection to what Bilam saw looking down on the hill, to looking down on all these Jewish people, all in their own place, and in synagogue, sometimes non-Jewish people, although they rarely wear talises, and they're all doing their own thing, and yet together in this beautiful encampment approaching God. What I want to do, it's a little different, is take Rashi's second explanation and build it on top of that first one, right? So when we say how goodly are your tents, when we come into the sanctuary, we mean the people, the individuals who are coming to pray. But then you have Rashi's second, explanation that tents refers to, the ohel refers to the tabernacle and the sanctuary. How would that tie in to Kushner and Poland's commentary? Well, there's a wonderful, beautiful commentary from Rabbi Shefa Gold on Mah Tovu, entering into the larger goodness. It's a little complicated, but bear with it, because I think it's very beautiful, right? There is a larger goodness that holds all of the good and the bad, a unity that holds within it all of the duality. When we enter into the larger goodness, we can get enough perspective to be able to bless the process of transformation that is in play at this very moment. And now she points out that the tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel, right? Why change, same person, but why use the name Jacob to start and then the name Israel later? And so, because we are in a process of transforming our Jacob, right? The heel, who is always trying to make a deal with reality, right? Jacob was always, a player. He was always trying to get one over on his uncle Laban or his brother Esau, right? So we're going through transformation from being our Yaakov into Yisrael, into Israel, the one who encounters reality directly, the one who looks at the world as it truly is spiritually. And we are in the process of transforming our plain old tent, the body and material from which we exist, into a mishkan, a place where the divine spirit is invited to dwell, right? It's transformation from Jacob to Israel and a transformation from ohel to mishkan, right? And we are the ohel or the mishkan. Trusting in this process of transformation, we can enter fully into God consciousness, which can only be attained through grace, right? So in fact, both of Rashi's explanations stand when we look at this through the idea of the individual. One, you are the tent. We are the tent. When we come into synagogue to pray together, we are taking our place among the disparate Jewish people all coming together to turn in the direction of God and try and bring more sacredness, more godliness into the world. But furthermore, you are also a holy vessel for prayer, right? You are going through a transformation. And when Rashi's second explanation, where he refers to the ohel as the sacred shrines, it's saying you are sacred. You have a divine soul. You are a creature of holiness if you will step up and take that place. right? And that's the transformation we're attempting in prayer. That's why we come to synagogue. So now we say this in synagogue when we walk in, right? We are accepting upon ourselves that we are part of this beautiful encampment of Bnei Israel, this beautiful encampment of the Jewish people. Not all exactly the same, but in fact, beautiful in our diversity. The fact that all of our windows and doors are faced in different directions, and that we're moving in one direction, trying to fulfill the mission of the Jewish people of bringing more holiness. And recognizing then that we are part of that we have a holiness within us, that every person, every individual has that holiness within them. And that your beautiful soul, and mine, and all of ours are part of this beautiful tapestry of the Jewish people, part of an incredible mission to bring more sacredness into the world, to make the world better not only for the Jewish people, but for all people. And I hope when we come into the sanctuary and we recite the Mah Tovu in the future, and certainly over this summer as we have continue our summer of reflection on these various prayers, that we are able to look for our role, our purpose, and our mission so that we can have a more meaningful life and recognize that the synagogue is a place where we come to get that wider look, to understand more who we are in a much broader context, in a time and a world when we are all looking inevitably very narrowly at our own self-interests and at our own view and take on things. Coming into synagogue, being part of that beautiful, that goodly tents and mishkans of the Jewish people, we can have our aspects broadened, our eyes opened wider, and hopefully be able to live our purpose even more successfully. I wish that for all of us. I wish you a good few weeks, and looking forward to catching up in August.